In early 2021, police in New Mexico thought they were investigating a missing person. Then a second person vanished, then a third. When detectives followed the trail, they found themselves hunting a man who had already killed multiple people and who wasn't finished yet. Because while the police were trying to identify him, he was already planning his next murder. January 2021, in the small town of Grants, New Mexico, 21-year-old Matthew Miller suddenly disappeared. Eventually, Matthew's grandmother contacted authorities and reported him missing.
Well, the last time you talked to him was this 22nd of January?
Yes.
And that was what, a Tuesday?
Yeah, Tuesday.
Matthew struggled with addiction and was known to associate with people involved in the local drug scene. Detective Turney was assigned to the case. From the beginning, he appeared deeply concerned about Matthew's disappearance.
I have been doing this an awful long time. I am very concerned about Matthew's whereabouts. I'm very concerned.
Although he understood that addiction could sometimes lead people to vanish temporarily, his experience told him that something wasn't right. As the days turned into weeks, determined to find answers, Detective Turney began working his way through Matthew's social circle. He contacted friends, acquaintances, associates from the local drug community, and anyone who might have interacted with Matthew before he vanished. At that stage, detectives had no idea that Matthew Miller was never coming home, and his disappearance was only the first piece of a much larger and far more disturbing mystery that was beginning to unfold across Grants, New Mexico. While detectives continued searching for Matthew Miller, the investigation took an unexpected turn. Jennifer Lannon's mother contacted the police after realizing she had not heard from her daughter in weeks. At first, she tried not to panic, hoping there was a simple explanation, but as more time passed without a phone call, text message, or any kind of contact, her concern grew into fear. The longer investigators looked into her disappearance, the more concerned they became that something serious had happened. As detectives began gathering information about Jennifer's recent movements, they discovered she had last been seen with a man named Justin Mata. Justin was known within the same social circles as Jennifer and Matthew, and as investigators dug deeper, they realized that Justin had also seemingly vanished without a trace. As investigators continue interviewing people connected to the missing persons, one name keeps resurfacing. Again and again, witnesses mention the same individual, Sean Lannon, a former military man. Sean is Jennifer Lannon's ex-husband and the father of her 3 children. Although the couple had divorced, they continued to live together in the same house with their children. Detectives also learned that Sean's life had been unraveling in recent months. He had recently been evicted from his home, was struggling financially, and was dealing with a growing list of personal problems. Given his close connection to Jennifer, investigators naturally want to hear his side of the story. When Sean sits down with detectives, he appears cooperative. He explains that Jennifer had left town with Justin Mata. According to him, the two had run off together and were likely involved in drug use somewhere. Sean suggests that their disappearance isn't necessarily alarming and implies that this kind of behavior would not be completely out of character for the people involved. On the surface, his explanation seems plausible enough to warrant consideration. But as the conversation continues, Detective Turney begins to notice that Sean doesn't appear particularly worried. He isn't acting like a man desperately searching for the mother of his children. He doesn't seem panicked, emotional, or even especially curious about where Jennifer might be. Instead, he remains calm and composed throughout the interview. The detective can't quite put his finger on it yet, but something about Sean's demeanor feels off. Police eventually locate Matthew Miller's truck, abandoned near Sean Lannon's residence. At first glance, it appears to be a promising lead in the search for the missing 21-year-old. But when detectives begin reviewing surveillance footage from around the area, they uncover something Sean never told them. The cameras show Sean himself driving Matthew's truck after Matthew had already disappeared. That detail immediately changes the direction of the investigation. During his earlier interview, Sean had acknowledged driving the truck weeks earlier to run errands with his children before returning it. but he never mentioned moving the vehicle after Matthew vanished. Now, detectives know Sean hasn't been truthful. The question is no longer whether he's withholding information. The question is, why? As investigators continue digging, more troubling information begins to surface. People in Sean's social circle started coming forward. One witness tells detectives that shortly before speaking with police, Sean showed up carrying a bag containing personal belongings. According to the witness, the bag contained a gun, Jennifer Lannon's identification cards, and other items that seemed strangely important for someone whose ex-wife was supposedly just missing. Another witness tells police something equally suspicious. After meeting with investigators, Sean allegedly smashed a cell phone in front of multiple people. When detectives later try to reach him at the number he provided, the phone is no longer active. To investigators, it looks less like a coincidence and more like someone trying to destroy evidence. The mounting concerns led police to obtain a search warrant for Sean's residence. Inside the home, investigators discover something they can't easily explain away. In one of the bedrooms, sections of carpeting have been ripped up and removed. Detectives immediately wonder whether someone had been attempting to clean or conceal evidence. While they don't yet know exactly what happened inside the house, the discovery only deepens their suspicions. When Sean Lannon is brought back in for a second interview, the atmosphere is completely different from the first time detectives spoke with him. Over the previous weeks, investigators have reviewed surveillance footage, tracked vehicle movements, interviewed witnesses, and compared Sean's statements against the growing body of evidence. Detective Turney wastes little time getting to the point. He tells Sean that he has systematically examined every explanation he previously provided and has ruled them out one by one. As far as the detective is concerned, Sean has been lying from the beginning. Step 1, Detective Turney says, is to tell me where the bodies are. The accusation hangs in the air. Police have not yet discovered any bodies. There is no confession. But the detective is making it clear that he no longer believes Jennifer Lannon, Justin Mata, and Matthew Miller are simply missing. He believes they are dead. More importantly, he believes Sean knows exactly what happened to them. Sean immediately denies knowing anything about bodies. He insists that he has already told detectives everything he knows. Calmly, he asks what evidence could possibly make them think otherwise. But Detective Turney is ready with answers. The detective begins with Matthew Miller's truck. During his first interview, Sean claimed the last time he drove Matthew's truck was weeks earlier. He said he had taken his children to McDonald's, Walmart, and a few other places before returning home. According to Sean, that was the last time he had anything to do with the vehicle. Detective Turney tells him that it isn't what the surveillance footage shows. Sean can no longer deny driving the truck. Instead, he changes his story. He now claims that Justin and Matthew had instructed him to park it there and leave the keys inside because they planned to come back for it later. It's an explanation detectives never heard during his first interview. To investigators, it's yet another example of Sean altering his story once he's confronted with evidence. Detective Turney then turns his attention to another major inconsistency. Sean had previously claimed that Jennifer and Justin left together in a white Chrysler 300. According to his story, the pair drove away and disappeared together. But detectives tell him they have reviewed surveillance footage from around the area and have found no evidence supporting that claim. No white Chrysler matching Sean's description appears where it should. The vehicle that supposedly carried Jennifer and Justin away seems to exist only in Sean's version of events. The questioning then shifts to Sean's actions on February 10th, the same day he first came to speak with police about Jennifer's disappearance. Investigators have spoken to witnesses and gathered information about Sean's movements before arriving at the police station. Detective Turney tells him that before coming in for the interview, he stopped at Kelly's house. According to the detective, Sean brought a bag into the residence. Inside the bag were Jennifer's identification cards. There was also a gun. The detective wants to know why a man, supposedly worried about his missing ex-wife, was carrying around her IDs and a firearm. Sean insists there is an explanation. He claims the bag wasn't hidden. According to him, he simply left it on the kitchen table. He says the firearm belonged to Justin Mata and that Jennifer's identification cards happened to be inside the bag as well. But the explanation does little to ease investigators' concerns. The detective presses further. Witnesses have told police that Sean destroyed a phone shortly after leaving the station. Several people reportedly saw him smash it. Detective Turney points out something suspicious. During the first interview, Sean provided a phone number and told detectives it was the best way to reach him. But after he left the station and allegedly destroyed the phone, investigators could no longer contact him at that number. Sean denies smashing the phone. The detective doesn't believe him. By this point, nearly every major part of Sean's story has either changed or been contradicted by evidence. As the pressure increases, Sean falls back on a familiar strategy. He begins pointing detectives toward another man, Danny Dog Leos. Throughout the interview, Sean repeatedly portrays Danny as violent, dangerous, and capable of murder. He reminds investigators about Danny's criminal reputation and claims that if anyone were capable of killing the missing people, Danny would be a likely candidate. At one point, Sean even tells detectives about a disturbing conversation in which Danny allegedly joked about feeding bodies to pigs. But Detective Turney isn't interested in chasing another suspect. By the time the interview ends, Sean still refuses to confess. He denies knowing where Jennifer, Justin, or Matthew are. He denies killing anyone. He denies hiding bodies. And he continues insisting that investigators are focusing on the wrong person. But as Sean leaves the interrogation room, detectives are more convinced than ever that they are dealing with murder. In early March 2021, security personnel at Albuquerque International Sunport Airport noticed something unusual about a red pickup truck that had been sitting inside the parking garage. The vehicle appeared abandoned, and employees began reporting a foul odor coming from it. At first, the smell wasn't strong enough to immediately suggest anything sinister. Some believed it might be a dead animal or spoiled food left inside the vehicle. But as time passed, the odor became impossible to ignore. Airport security officers approached the truck to investigate. Looking through the windows, they noticed several large plastic storage containers in the vehicle. As they examined the contents more closely, what they saw immediately raised alarm. Officers quickly called the Albuquerque Police Department, and responding officers arrived at the scene in the early morning hours of March 5th. Even then, many of the officers hoped there was another explanation. But as they peered through the windows, they began noticing more disturbing details. There were black plastic bags. There were tools inside the truck that appeared to have reddish stains. Within minutes, it became clear that this was far more serious than a suspicious vehicle call. Crime scene investigators were summoned to process the truck. As they began to open the containers, they were confronted with one of the most gruesome scenes many of them had ever seen. Inside the bins were human remains. Multiple victims had been placed inside plastic storage containers. One container held the remains of a female victim. Others contained the remains of male victims. In one particularly shocking discovery, investigators found a blade still lodged in the rib cage of one of the victims. The discovery immediately sent shockwaves through the investigation in New Mexico. The victims were identified as the very three people who had been at the center of the missing persons investigation. But as investigators continued processing the vehicle, they discovered there was another body inside the vehicle. As investigators worked to identify the fourth victim, they quickly learned that he was Randall Apostolon. Unlike Matthew Miller, Jennifer Lannon, and Justin Mata, Randall had never been considered part of the missing persons investigation in Grants. He wasn't known to be part of the same social circle. He wasn't one of the names detectives had been chasing for weeks. At first glance, there appeared to be no obvious connection between him and the three victims already identified in the truck. As investigators dug deeper, every lead continued pointing back to the same person, Sean Lannon. The discovery of Randall Apostolon's body forced investigators to consider a much darker possibility. They might be hunting a serial killer. Then, detectives learned that their primary suspect is no longer in New Mexico. Airport records and surveillance footage reveal that Sean Lannon had already boarded a plane and flown across the country. He wasn't traveling alone. Sean had his 3 children with him when he left New Mexico. His destination was New Jersey, where family members lived. Law enforcement agencies immediately begin coordinating across state lines. Surveillance efforts are organized, and investigators work quickly to locate Sean and monitor his movements. Their goal is to safely separate him from his children before attempting to take him into custody. But before that can happen, Sean suddenly disappears. According to family members, he leaves the area and allegedly heads toward Virginia for a job interview. Investigators can no longer account for his whereabouts. What investigators don't realize is that Sean isn't simply running from the law. He has another destination in mind. And before authorities can find him, another person will be dead. Meanwhile, in New Jersey, a woman named Carol becomes concerned about her longtime friend, 66-year-old Michael Dabkowski.
Police communications.
Hello. I need an officer to check on someone for me, if that was possible.
Michael recently obtained a new phone, but after speaking with him earlier in the day, Carol can no longer reach him. Repeated calls go unanswered. She contacts the police and asks them to conduct a welfare check. Officers respond to Michael's residence, expecting what is often a routine call. At first, nothing appears obviously wrong. The home is locked, there is no answer at the door, and a neighbor tells officers that Michael's absence is completely out of character. Investigators also learned that Michael's vehicle had been seen elsewhere, creating uncertainty about whether he may have unexpectedly left town. Officers continue checking the property and eventually gain access to the home and immediately notice blood inside the residence. As they move further through the house, they make a grim discovery. Michael Dabkowski is lying on the floor. The scene is gruesome, and it quickly becomes apparent that this is no medical emergency. Michael has been brutally beaten to death. Detectives begin tracing Michael's recent contacts and relationships, searching for anyone who may have wanted to harm him. During those conversations, a familiar name suddenly emerges: Sean Lannon. The same Sean Lannon who is already at the center of the rapidly expanding murder investigation in New Mexico. What had started as a missing persons investigation in a small New Mexico town has now evolved into a multi-state manhunt for a suspected serial killer. Investigators finally got the breakthrough they desperately needed. Sean's phone generated activity that placed him hundreds of miles away from New Jersey. The signal came from Missouri. For the first time since the manhunt began, law enforcement had a concrete location. In the early morning hours of March 10, 2021, U.S. Marshals located Michael Dabkowski's stolen vehicle. Inside was the man they had been searching for, Sean Lannon. Rather than finding him fleeing or preparing another escape, officers discovered Sean asleep inside the stolen vehicle. The arrest itself was surprisingly uneventful. No dramatic confrontation. Sean offered no resistance and was taken into custody without incident. For investigators, the peaceful arrest brought enormous relief. At that point, authorities believed Sean was connected to the murders of Jennifer Lannon, Justin Mata, Matthew Miller, Randall Apostolon, and Michael Dabkowski. A search of the vehicle uncovered evidence that further connected Sean to the most recent homicide. Investigators recovered a hammer and bloody clothing from inside the SUV. The items would become important pieces of evidence as prosecutors built their case. Once Sean Lannon is finally in custody, investigators prepare for what they expect will be a difficult interrogation. Instead, as detectives question him, he starts admitting responsibility for the deaths of Jennifer Lannon, Justin Mata, Matthew Miller, Randall Apostolon, and Michael Dabkowski. Over the course of the interview, Sean explains how the murders unfolded and describes the steps he took afterward. He tells detectives how he lured certain victims into situations where he could kill them, how he moved bodies after the murders, and how he attempted to conceal evidence. Sean claimed Matthew was involved in inappropriate acts involving his son, allegations that investigators were never able to verify. According to Sean, that belief motivated the murder. Whether Matthew actually participated in what Sean described remains unknown. Based on Sean Lannon's own confession, his stated reasons for killing his ex-wife, Jennifer Lannon, and Justin Mata were very different from what many people assume when they first hear the case. For Jennifer, Sean told detectives that he walked into a bedroom and discovered Justin and Jennifer in bed together. He then claimed he discovered his children unresponsive and believed Jennifer and Justin had drugged them. Sean alleged that they had given the children substances and blown heroin smoke into their faces. According to Sean, he attempted to revive the children and became convinced that Jennifer was responsible for nearly causing their deaths. He told detectives that Jennifer then said she was going to overdose on heroin herself. Sean claimed that after she injected the heroin, he shot her in the head. However, there is an important caveat. Investigators were never able to publicly verify Sean's claims about what happened to the children that day. The confession reflects Sean's account, not necessarily an established fact. For Justin Mata, Sean's motive was tied directly to what he claimed happened after Jennifer's death. According to Sean, he used Jennifer's phone to impersonate her and lure Justin back to the house about a week later. During the interrogation, Sean said Justin arrived believing he was meeting Jennifer. Sean claimed that Justin possessed photographs involving Sean's son and that Justin admitted taking at least one of them. Sean told detectives that he considered letting Justin go after seeing the images, but ultimately decided to kill him. He said Justin was looking into a vent in the laundry room when Sean shot him in the back of the head. Again, investigators were able to prove that Sean killed Justin, but they were not able to publicly verify many of the allegations Sean made about the photographs or the conduct he claimed motivated the murder. According to Sean's confession, the homeless man, Randall, was not part of the original group of victims. Sean claimed that after killing Jennifer, Justin, and Matthew, he needed a way to move and store the containers holding their remains. Through an acquaintance, he was introduced to Randall Apostolon, who was living out of his truck and struggling with homelessness and addiction. Sean said he paid Randall to help him transport and store some containers. Randall apparently believed he was helping move belongings. However, when they attempted to use a storage location, the plan fell apart. Eventually, Randall wanted Sean to remove the containers from his truck. According to Sean, the situation escalated when Randall realized something was wrong with the containers. During the interrogation, Sean claimed Randall made comments indicating he knew there was something suspicious inside the boxes. Sean told detectives that Randall threatened to expose him or force him to remove everything from the vehicle immediately. Sean described viewing Randall as a threat. In his confession, Sean said the dispute turned violent in the parking lot of the Pearl Apartments in Albuquerque. He claimed he punched Randall and then attacked him with a hammer. After killing him, Sean loaded Randall's body into the truck and later abandoned the vehicle at the airport with all 4 victims inside. Ironically, Randall's truck became one of the most important pieces of evidence in the case, as it was the same vehicle airport security eventually discovered, setting off the chain of events that led investigators directly to him. As Sean's confession continued, detectives learned that the last murder of Michael Dabkowski had not been chosen at random. According to Sean, Michael had been part of his life since childhood. Sean told investigators that Michael had served as his mentor through the Big Brothers program when he was young. Sean then made a disturbing allegation. He claimed that Michael had sexually abused him as a child and had taken explicit photographs of him. According to Sean, after arriving in New Jersey, he went to Michael's house looking for those photographs. Sean told detectives that Michael eventually handed over the pictures. He then claimed that Michael attempted to rekindle the relationship, which triggered a violent confrontation. Sean admitted to beating Michael to death and stealing his vehicle before fleeing the area. While Sean repeatedly cited the alleged abuse as his motive, authorities found no evidence that conclusively proved the claims. As disturbing as the confession already is, Sean eventually makes a claim that catches investigators completely off guard. Up until this point, detectives believe they have identified 5 victims connected to him. Those 5 murders are supported by evidence and by Sean's own admissions. Then he tells investigators that there were more victims. According to Sean, the number is not 5, but 16. He claims that he killed 11 additional people beyond those already connected to the investigation. The statement immediately raises new concerns for law enforcement. Detectives attempt to identify possible victims, verify timelines, and determine whether any unsolved cases can be connected to him. However, they quickly encounter a major obstacle. Many of Sean's claims cannot be substantiated. Some lack supporting evidence, while others contain details that investigators cannot independently verify. Despite extensive efforts, authorities are unable to confirm many of the additional killings Sean describes. To this day, it is unclear whether Sean was revealing crimes that authorities simply could not prove, exaggerating his history of violence, or mixing truth with fiction. Sean Lannon eventually chose to plead guilty rather than take the cases to trial. For the families of the victims, the decision meant they would be spared years of court proceedings, graphic testimony, and the painful process of reliving the details of the murders in front of a jury. In New Jersey, Sean Lannon pleaded guilty to the murder of Michael Dabkowski and was sentenced to 35 years in prison. He later pleaded guilty in New Mexico to the murders of Jennifer Lannon, Justin Mata, Matthew Miller, and Randall Apostolon. For those killings, he received 4 consecutive 15-year sentences totaling 60 years. Yet, despite the convictions, this question never received an answer. Did police capture a killer responsible for 5 murders, or did they stop one of New Mexico's deadliest serial killers before anyone realized how many victims there really were?